about title, title and title commitment, title insurance? What can you tell us about that and why it's so important?
So title work is important to the buyer because at closing, in a typical commercial real estate transaction in our area, the buyer receives an owner's title policy,
Mm-hmm.
evidencing that the buyer owns title at the point in time when the deed is delivered to him. And that's a source of protection to the buyer. It's a contract of indemnity, so it's only true as of that moment, but that's generally sufficient for what the buyer needs. But that policy is subject to exceptions. And the categories of exceptions that are most frequently of importance to the buyer are things like security interests, like mortgages or construction liens, or rights granted to third parties over the property, like easements,
Mm-hmm.
or things like building and use restrictions. So these are important for the following reasons. And the title insurance commitment that the buyer receives during the due diligence period will contain a list of all of these exceptions so that the buyer can decide how important they are and whether they need to be modified, removed, etc. So mortgages and construction liens basically evidence the fact that the seller or some predecessor in interest owes another party money. The failure to pay that debt will result in foreclosure of the property and loss of title.
Mm-hmm.
So it's imperative, if you've got a mortgage on property, that you're not assuming that you as the buyer make sure the seller pays off the mortgage, the construction lien, or similar kind of lien. Easements include things like rights of utilities
Mm-hmm.
to construct their utility lines, sewers over the property, rights of way in favor of governmental bodies, and sometimes access and parking easements. And those are the kinds of things a buyer really needs to carefully review so he can determine if the existence of those easements will affect his ability either to operate his property immediately or affect his ability to do changes or improvements to the property. If
Right.
you've got a utility line running diagonally from one end of the property to the other, it may be difficult for you to construct something below your building.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you can construct a parking lot, possibly, but you sure wouldn't be able to put in an outlot construct a fast food restaurant on an outlet lot unless that easement is rerouted.